Well, hello there, and welcome to another video in Minecraft. I was going to say another short Minecraft video, but this is actually my third time recording this, and the last two were actually 8 and then 10 minutes long. Somehow it took longer the second time, probably because I ramble on like I'm doing now. But anyway, let's get to this video. So, this video is about these structure blocks, but it's about a very specific property of them. You see, in my other video, I mentioned that there are some major bugs with structure blocks in that they don't save to the correct place, so you actually can't save structure blocks except in memory, which means when you're using them, but as soon as you leave the world, they're all gone. So that bug, according to Searge, has been fixed, and so the next snapshot, it will be fixed. So when that comes out, I will be posting up the full structure blocks tutorial, which has to do with those. But anyway, this video is not that. This is not a full structure blocks tutorial. This is going to be talking about one feature of structure blocks, which is kind of mysterious, which is this data mode. So when you right-click a structure block, you get data mode, save mode, load mode, and corner mode. We know what save, load, and corner mode are. Nobody seems to know what data mode is. Now, if you look at here, it says custom data tag name. Nobody knows what that is either. So data tags in Minecraft are fairly straightforward. They're JSON tags that hold information about a block or an entity. But what does that mean in terms of this structure block? No one really knows. So, people have been speculating. Now, if you didn't know, structure blocks are not actually new to 1.10. They showed up in 1.9. However, before 1.10, structure blocks were for the devs only. They were not usable by normal players. In fact, they weren't usable by players at all, whether you're normal or not. It was only a dev thing. And they were used to make things like the end city dungeons and the end ships and things like that. Maybe even the igloos, though I'm not sure about that one. But yeah. So at that time, these data blocks showed up everywhere that chests showed up in those structures. So people assumed they were used for things like chest loot tables. And they might have been. But because of that, people are assuming that they are also used for loot tables in 1.10, and we just don't know the right format for this data tag name to use it ourselves. However, I'm about to show you that you can, in fact, use loot tables in your structures without using these data blocks. And it's not as straightforward as it sounds. It is pretty straightforward, but there is one quirk that you need to know about and keep in mind when using this to make your loot tables work properly in your saved structures. So, to demonstrate, I'm going to create a chest with a loot table right here using this command, which is just setting a block at the current position, and it's setting it to a chest. This is the data value, which for chest determines which direction it's facing. I don't care, so I'm just going to use 0. You can use whatever value you want. I'm replacing the current block, which is air. But the key piece of code here is that I'm giving it a loot table. In this case, I'm giving it the loot table of a skeleton. So when you kill a skeleton, it drops some loot based on a loot table, and that's what I'm using, meaning the contents of this chest will be something that a skeleton could drop. Right? Some amount of loot that a skeleton could drop when you kill it. So I'm going to press that, and I'm going to open this chest. Now, I'm going to give you a word of advice now, and I'll explain it in a second, but you do not want to open your chests if you're using loot tables in your structures. Do not open them, do not open them, do not open them, and you'll see why in a second, but I'm going to open this one to demonstrate that it generates random skeleton loot. In this case, this skeleton would have dropped a single arrow, so it puts a single arrow in this chest. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create the same block, the same chest, with the same loot table using the same command, identical to it. But I'm not going to open it. And I'm going to switch into game mode 3, which is spectator mode, to show you that these two chests are very different. They're the same block, facing the same direction, with the same loot table, but they are very different because I've opened this one. So if I'm in spectator mode and I open this bottom one, it's fine. It opens, it shows me the same loot it generated before, an arrow right there, it's all the same, it's fine. If I try to open this top one, it's going to tell me unable to open, loot not generated yet. And that's because loot from a loot table is generated when you break a chest or when you open the chest. If neither of those things have happened, the loot has not been generated. And that's very important, because when loot is generated from a loot table, the loot table itself is removed from the block. So if you open a chest and then save that chest in a structure, it's going to have pre-generated loot, and it's not going to dynamically generate loot based on a loot table because it will have lost the loot table tag. Whereas something like this one that hasn't been opened and therefore has not had its loot generated retains its loot table tag. So if I save this in a structure, it will actually save the loot table with it, and each copy of the structure will generate different loot based on the table. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to switch this over to save mode, create a structure called loot chests, and the relative position is 1 in the x, 0 in the y, 0 in the z. The structure size is 1 in the x. It's 2 in the y because it's two chests on top of each other, 1 in the z. When I click done, it'll highlight this. And now if I click save, it'll say structure saved. So now that I broke it, they both generated loot, but I'm going to switch this over to a load, and I'm going to load the loot chest structure immediately above, so one block in the y direction above this. So if I press load, it loads them up here. Now if I put a button on here, load and save structure blocks will actually respond to redstone to load and save stuff, so I can demonstrate this easily. If we look on the bottom, the one that I opened before, it has the same arrow in this copy of the structure. If I open the top, it's got 2 bones. Now if I reload the structure, bottom still has the same loot, top, it has 2 bones. In this case that's a coincidence, but they're in different places. If I reload it, same arrow, now it's just the 1 bone. So you can see that the top is being dynamically generated, 2 bones and an arrow, while the bottom, because I opened it before and it generated the loot before I saved the structure, will only ever have this 1. And so to really bring the point home, I'm going to load this up in 3 different places. This one above, and then this one -2. So we have these 3 copies of our saved structure. So imagine that these are part of a bigger structure, a building of some sort, and they're spread out far away from each other in the world, and you want it to have random loot. Well, the bottom ones will all have the same loot because I generated it by opening it before I saved. The top ones I was careful not to open before I saved. Now that one has 1 arrow in the corner. This one has 2 arrows and 2 bones. This one has 2 arrows and 2 bones in different places. So you can see the top ones were dynamically generated. The bottom ones were not. Which is, as I've said, the point of this video. The point of this video is to teach you that you do not need the data block to store loot tables in your chests, in your structures, or your minecart chests, or whatever you're using a loot table for. You do not need the data block for it, as long as you are very careful not to open the chest before you save. The second that loot is generated, you've lost your loot table, and you will not get dynamic loot in your structures. But if you're careful and you don't open them, then you can get dynamic loot, which is good and bad. It's good because it means you can have dynamic loot tables in your structures and then just spawn multiple copies of the structure in your world. And yeah, they'll all be different. They'll all have different loot, which is awesome. They're more like regular dungeons. However, It also means that we still have no idea what the data block is used for, because it's not this. So yeah, one question answered, and then one mystery remains. Maybe one day we'll figure it out. But anyway, yep, so that is what this video is all about. Hopefully you learned something, and hopefully your structures in the future will have this dynamic loot, which would be awesome. As I said, the next snapshot has the saving of structures completely fixed, bug-free, so when that comes out, I will post up a full tutorial on structure block usage. There are many tutorials out there. By day 1, there were already like 3. I think now there's at least like 10 or 20. So if you're impatient, you can go and just search YouTube for Minecraft structure block tutorial, and you'll find a ton of them. None of them will tell you what the data block is for, because no one knows. But they'll show you how to use the other ones, the save, the load, and the corner blocks. But as soon as the next version, the next snapshot comes out, I will be showing you using these structures, hint, spoilers, how to do that on my own channel. So, until next time, keep generating loot, keep saving structures, and keep on keeping on.